Good day. My name is Stephen Davids. I am the CEO of a training company, Batupele Center of Learning, a professional journalist, and a systems designer. In this video, I will focus on understanding Google's index and match functions, and we will conclude with some examples. The purpose of this video is so that if you understand the functions, how they work, you will be able to much easier tweak them, to adapt them, and even to build match and index functions that fits your purpose. But let me start off with the reasons why we need index and match function, and this will also illustrate the power of the function. In our organization, there are 3 steps in the approval of a person's learnership. You must first the contract must first be approved. In other words, do you have your ID, necessary signatures, proof of address, etc. The contract must be approved. Then also your payment requirements must be approved. Are you willing and able then to pay fulfill your financial requirements towards the institution? And then thirdly, the organization then submit the application forms to the department, and the department must then look at your qualifications, your highest qualifications, your relevant qualifications, and then the department in the third step must approve your application. So it will be nice if the 3 steps in the approval process can be aligned and next to each other so that person can see immediately, okay, you have your unit standard requirements are approved, the financial requirements are approved, as well as the contractual requirements are complied with. It will be easy to see it here. In addition, at the final end, before results are released, the financial department must approve the release of the results. It will be good if all these elements can be next to each other in columns and in rows. But how do you insert these data? If you just use a query, the data will not be linked to the specific individual and the person and his course. If you just use the if function, it will be quite a burden because I don't even know how much work it will entail. The solution for us is the index and match function, which will then immediately also update. Understanding the index and match function is not so easy. If you just look at some videos on the YouTube, some of them are a little bit, to say the least, confusing, and we have to mend that. So the way we do it is what is generally known as, we follow a method in education called scaffolding. You start with a simple thing and then build up to a more. Get for yourself a data set, maybe around 5 columns and about 14, 24 rows full of realistic data that will suit your purposes and that will reflect what you actually want to do. Start off with building a simple index. There's the index function, and then play around with it. Maybe just a few 3-4 minutes. You will change the input parameters. Maybe see what the results are. Okay, maybe then the second parameter here, the row 12, see what the results are. root 12 and the column was number 2. So you play around. It's also maybe just 2-3 minutes just to get the hang of the index function. Then you go and do more or less the same for the match function. You change the data there. The name is Russell. There's a second column there. Just change the parameters there, but leave you can even put the last one also. Change the last one 0. In our purposes, we prefer the 0 to stick because our data is usually unsorted. Change from Russell maybe to Shepherd or something. The name there. Another name. See, doesn't belong there. Just see what happens. Just see what happens. Look around. Okay, now the idea is basically this: that you get know what's going on, what the parameters. Then you develop index and match function for this simple series, not easily develop. Just use the input data there. This is the series match. And then play around with that. If you maybe change the input data, that's first C to B. See what happens. Okay, there you can see that it extends the data. Copy it down because this is it's extended. Maybe you change it F2 to other column to B. See what happens. Just get the hang of it. Just get the hang of it. Just get the hang of it. Is it a change? Yes, no. What is going on? You see, the purpose is quickly to understand, and then if you spend maybe around 10 minutes, you will see certain tendencies, the way it expands, or what it results of. So now I have a better background to understand the basic single criteria formula for the index and match function. This basic formula consists of 4 elements. The first element is the index, where you say index and reproduce the row in the sources range D to D, or whatever the source range must be. And then you go and match the value in cell FC, or whatever it must be, with the value you find in the column C2. And then please remember that my data is not source. Those are the 4 elements of this basic formula. Some notes on the index part of the function. This index source can be a specified range written as E2 to D6, or whatever the range may be, E6, whatever. The source which you want to search, but in which you want to get the row, may also be a range to infinity, and in this case you do not specify the end row of the column, and this is especially useful in our circumstances where we use data that's input into the form by people that submit forms, and it can also be a named range. This index, the source that you want to index and reproduce, can be the same worksheet. Then you just simply reproduce a column. It can be in a different sheet in the same workbook, and please note the single quotes here that you use here. First, it is sheet name with the exclamation mark, and then you put down the columns. And it can also be in another workbook or file. Please, in this case, you use the import range plus the double quotes. And the double quotes, this is the product fee. So maybe in these videos on how to get the product fee, followed by the sheet, and then followed by the range. If we now go to the match element of the index match function, then in the normal and usually used single criteria function, then the first reference is must be written as a cell. It refers to the value that must be matched. It can be a text or a number. In other words, if the value in that F2 cell is worse, please then in this return the data in that index. This cell can have a relative reference, usually reference F2, or absolute cell reference. But the absolute cell reference is want to create maybe sort of a query where someone just put in the data instead of going to the functions themselves. If we now go to the next element of the match function, the third element must be written as a column, and this value is used for against which you want to match. In other words, find in this column if F2 has a certain value, course name number, find it in this column, and this column must be then written as a column or as part of a column. C2 in our case, we don't write it maybe as a specific range C2 to C60 or C2000 because there's an input into the form responses that continuously change. Also remember that this source can in turn also be part of the same worksheet where you just write it C to C2 or whatever. It can be part of a different worksheet but in the same workbook, and again you then first indicate and insert the sheet name. The sheet name we usually write it is better to write it very short. Give your sheet names short names. If you want later explanatory names, level 1 at 4 starters, for example, it is easier to rename it later on. When you start off with the formulas, burning formulas, have a very short and sweet name because the chances of making a mistake is far less. And you can then later on just rename the sheet again and it will automatically change the names wherever the sheet name is referred to. The sheet name in single quotes followed by an exclamation mark is the range. The worksheet, the column can also be in another workbook file, and in that case you also then use the import range and the double quotes, always the double quotes. So the import range, comma, open quote, the name of the sheet, exclamation mark, the cell range. Last part of the index match function is usually a 0 or it can be a 1 or -1. In our case, we just stick to the 0 because 0 indicates that the source data that must be reproduced and that must be searched are not sorted. And this is especially for our purposes important because we use data that's inserted from the form responses. If you understand the basic structure and syntax, then it will be easier for you to understand other formats in which the function is written. For example, here it is slightly changed in that you must still reproduce the data in the source set A to E, but in this case is the same worksheet. And then please match it if it match the function, the name, Roger, and this is a text value, therefore written in the quotes in the column B1 to B2, and then my data is not sorted. This is then, instead of having a text there, it's asked for the same thing, that you must reproduce if and when value is a number. In this case, it is without the quotes because it's a number. The basic function are still the same. In the case here, in column number 6, you go, and if you can see this single quote, worksheet name refers to a worksheet where that is in the same workbook. And then the function says index is the same. Basic function says index, and reproduce the row in the data set A to C in the worksheet as a different worksheet from the one that's on work now, and the name of that worksheet is level 1. If it matches the value in the column that I'm telling you, working from, in the next worksheet, level 1, that is also another in the same way. If you then continue, you will see that it is the same function. This one looks very intimidating. However, the same basic structure applies, because you simply refer here to sources as well as the columns that is in another worksheet, in another workbook outside the present workbook or file that you're working at this present moment. And it basically say index, the source range with the source data, and the source range and source data, as you can see, if you input it from another worksheet, you must import. All you put then into the function is that you have the import range here. Import range basically saying index and reproduce then the following data set in row E2 to row G25 from an outside worksheet, and the worksheet's product key is there. First set double quotes, and then the sheet's name, exclamation mark, in that outside worksheet. The same thing is that you say the second part of the formula, match the function then if it matches the value in E2 in the column, and it is the outside column where you import the range. In that column again, input the range key, product key, plus the sheet name, plus the columns name. We will now have a short look at the index and match function, which have multiple criteria. Multiple criteria just have the following 3 differences, and that is related to the match part of the index and match function. First difference is that there comes a 1 comma directly after the match, and then it is followed by the match criteria and the match against column, which are all in brackets. This is then the match criteria equals the match against column, but in the match against column, sorry, this must be a C and not a B, because it must be a column there. column there, joined then by a star sign, and the star sign joins every separate criteria. So in other words, you can have, in this case, we have two criteria. You can have a star plus another criteria, star plus. It is also, the basics are the same, namely the value in the cell must be, as I said, this is a mistake, it must be C in the column C2 to C infinity. The rest of the formula are exactly the same as that are for a single. If you understand the multiple index and match criteria function as it is written, the basic formula there, this is the first criteria, and then the second criteria, you're also able to understand then when it is written in a different format. In this example, in column 9, in row 9, excuse me, the only difference is that it refers here to a different sheet in the same workbook, and in column 10 it refers to cells sources located in another workbook, in other words another spreadsheet cell, and here are the references. Import range index, and we produce this following set of data E2 to G25 that is located in the outside spreadsheet in this following sheet, with the name sheet, and then match it with the following criteria if it matches this worksheet the value in cell E2 with the column B2 to B25, and this column is situated in an outside workbook that is then accessed import range product key with the sheet name. Strings of the index and match functions can be illustrated with three sheets that interplay in one form. Three worksheets that interplay in this formula that is based on a multi-criteria is number one is the current worksheet, then there is a second worksheet, left one, and the third worksheet is called your input. And the basic formula which uses all three worksheets are then basically that states index and reproduce the source data, a row in the source data that is in input 1 short sheet input 1, and match it then if the multiple criteria first place C7 equals then and is found in the worksheet level 1. It's a different worksheet from the source data in the column B, and the asterisk for multiple, the star for multiple criteria value in E7 takes all number value equals and is found then in column C in the input sheet. You see, so there are three sheets. The first current one, your sheet called input 1, and the sheet called left 1. And this, if you apply it is a very good formula. Whilst the index and match function can be used with other functions, the functions we find very useful are the number one, the if error function. If you wrap the index and match function inside of the error function, then you can get rid of these error output. Two other functions we find very useful are the query and the unique functions that can be used in combination with the index and match function. Thank you very much for watching this video. We appreciate constructive comments. Please like and share this video.